everyone is doing very well. I hope the audio is clear to everyone right now. So first of all, let's see if the audio is working properly. From last 1 or 2 days, we are having this problem. Okay, so everything is fine now. So sorry for the issue, guys. So finally the session is starting. So I think from the last second day it has happened. So I will work on it that this does not get repeated, and sorry for the inconvenience. Yesterday also we took around 20-25 minutes. Same thing has happened today also. So welcome to 23rd January 2025 Daily Decodes, and I hope everyone is doing extremely well. And the important news before we proceed further, on 6th of February 2025, batch 2 is starting for the OGP, that is offline and online guidance program, which is a full-fledged batch for GS, CSAT and SA, and this is under the guidance of Vinay sir, who is the founder and director of Insights IAS. Okay. So moving further towards this, and the most, the thought for the day is the most effective way to do it is to do it. So the most effective way to do it is to do it. That means when you want to achieve something, most important thing is that you start working on it. If you need to do revision of a chapter, the only way to do a revision of chapter is start doing revision. The only way to become very good with MCQs is practicing MCQs. Only way to become, if like you want to see how you perform in a 2-hour or a 3-hour exam is to start doing mocks. Only way to understand a topic is to complete the topic, do the revision of topic, and then only it will happen. Specifically, I find this quote very relevant for mathematics, because for maths people, they say that they are very bad in maths, but they still don't practice. So unless you start practicing, obviously this quote is for everything, but for mathematics, since I was not so great in maths, so I keep talking that, if you want to become good at maths, only thing which you can do is start doing practice. Once you start doing practice, you will become better in it. All the students who have joined, please ask your also friends to join, that the session has started. So let everybody join in the session. Okay. So the important news which we would be covering today is National Health Mission has curbed several public health concerns. So this is a report which has come from government. Trump warns of tariff against European Union and 10% rate on China. So Donald Trump has started doing his work. So second, third, what he has promised before, in the time being of the elected president, he has started implementing it. A wonderful report has come, not wonderful for India, but understanding the inequalities which still exist. Oxfam report has come which says UK extracted 64.82 trillion from India. $64.82 trillion. Just imagine if we had this amount of money, and this is the money which is running the European markets, UK, and probably the Americans also. So this is the amount of wealth they extracted from India. Just imagine $64.82 trillion. And today, when you are talking about to become, currently Indian economy is around $4 trillion. Just imagine if this $64 trillion gets added to it, where we would be right now. So this tells the amount of exploitation which Britishers, imperialism and colonialism has done on India, and that is why we do see there is a sluggish growth in India, but there are many reasons behind it. Next is editorial, China's move must recast India's critical minerals push. We had covered this issue earlier also, that how India is working for the getting more of these natural resources, what are the steps have taken, but we will also understand in this editorial that how China is using mineral as a exploitative strategy or as a tactical strategy against the world. In the prelims decode, we'll talk about National Health Mission related to the first news, why National Health Mission is important, when was it started, and how many schemes it has subsumed. Okay, it was a new scheme, or it had taken over two schemes or one scheme or changed one scheme. This is we'll understand in National Health Mission. As we approach towards prelims, the prelims question will become very, very important. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about National Health Mission has curbed several public health concerns, says Centre's report. Okay, so NHM was launched by the Government of India in 2013, subsuming two important schemes. So it was started in 2013 and it subsumed two important schemes. First was National Rural Health Mission, which was launched in 2005, and National Urban Health Mission, which was launched in 2013. So there was separate urban and rural health schemes. One was in 2005 and one was in 2013. Now both of them, urban and rural, were merged, and one single window system or single window scheme came, which was known as National Health Mission of 2013. Now what was the focus of this National Health Mission? There were many focus, but the prominent ones were on the maternal mortality, reproductive, maternal, neonatal, child, that means towards women and the child. So reproductive, maternal, neonatal, child and adolescent health, and communicable and non-communicable disease. These were the areas where the major focus was there. NHM envisages achievement of universal access to equitable, affordable and quality healthcare services. So universal healthcare, universal access to equitable, affordable and quality healthcare services was the focus of the scheme. Okay, and there were many other, there are many other goals which was focused in this scheme. Just to tell you some of them, which later you can go on your own: reduce MMR, that is maternal mortality rates, to 1 by 1000 live births, infant mortality rate to 25 by 1000 live births, reduce TFR, that is total fertility rate. In UPSC prelims, they've asked this question: what is MMR, what is IFR, and what is TFR, what is total fertility rate? These are certain areas which UPSC has asked multiple times in the examination. Prevent and reduction of anemia in women aged 15 to 49 years. A lot of focus was on sickle cell anemia, tuberculosis and the maternal mortality rate. So rest of them you can go on your own, but these are some of the important parameters which National Health Mission focuses on. Now coming towards the news. So when we come towards the news, that is National Health Mission has played a pivotal role in improving India's public health, and that's a very good thing, a positive news coming from the health point of view. But I still feel that the expenditure, the budget, still, the health is around 24, it was around 1.7 or 1.8% of the health. Around the COVID years, it had increased. I'm just trying to remember the numbers. It had increased more than 2%, but again, unless we reach around 2 to 3% is the bare minimum which we need to spend on health. Once we start spending around 2 to 3% of the health, the overall quality will increase of the health and the health parameters in India. So India's public health has specifically increased, has got better in maternal mortality, tuberculosis and sickle cell anemia. So the government assessment report is studying from 2021 to 2024, presented in the Union Cabinet, highlights that National Health Mission impact on healthcare infrastructure, human resources, expansion and disease control. In all parameters we have worked good. Obviously there are still many steps which needs to be implemented, and on health parameter which we need to improve. Like on space we are improving, on defense and strategic affairs we are improving, diplomacy we are improving. Similarly, health also needs to be a very important agenda of the government. Now these 3 pointers I have given to you because if you see, I have put an asterisk out here, that maternal mortality, tuberculosis and sickle cell anemia. Now these 3 pointers I have given to you because this is a standard prelims question which can be asked in your exam. Like they might give you a definition of tuberculosis, they might give you a definition of sickle cell anemia, or they might give you a definition of maternal mortality and ask you match the following, or they might change the definition, or might change some specific words, they'll play with only or some other words. So maternal mortality is the death of women during pregnancy or within 42 days of giving the birth. So maternal mortality rate basically sees that if the woman has died during the pregnancy or after 42 days of pregnancy. Now they might play with this word 42, they might write 80, 85, 45, 50. So they might play with the number. So giving birth, it's a key indicator of region's reproductive health. So this women health in pregnancy and after the pregnancy, that is around around 1.5 months. This shows that if the MMR is very high in your region, that means the region's reproductive health is not good. Now, second is tuberculosis. That's a bacterial infection that primarily affects the lungs, spread through the air when people sneeze who are suffering from TB, cough, sneeze or spit. TB is curable with antibiotics, but it can become fatal if you do not if you do not take proper medicines against it or untreated. Next is what is sickle cell anemia. In sickle cell anemia, the shape of your cell changes. So it's a genetic blood disease that causes red blood cells to become sickle shaped and rigid. And once they become sickle shaped and rigid, it becomes difficult for cells to move through the blood vessels, and this since they are not able to move through the blood vessels, it basically increases pain in your body. It can block blood flow, and obviously when the blood flow is blocked in your body, this will lead to a lot of pain and suffering. So one is maternal mortality, that is related to women during pregnancy and 42 days after that, how many women they die. Tuberculosis, bacterial infection related to lungs. Third is sickle cell anemia, in which the red blood cells shape change, it becomes sickle in nature, sickle shaped and rigid, and because of this shape they are not able to move in the blood, and eventually this leads to block the blood flow and cause pain. So these are the three parameters on which National Health Mission has worked, and we have been able to get improved number on this. So, and also expansion of healthcare workforce. So the human resource has also increased. If you see some of the numbers in financial year 2021 to 2022, 2.6 lakh additional health workers, including general duty medicinal officers, specialists, staff nurses, Ayush doctors got added. Financial year 2022 to 2023, 4.21 lakh healthcare workers engaged with around 1.29 lakh community health officers. So number of people in the health machinery got added. This also tells us the employment also in this area increased. Next is financial year 2023 to 2024. 5.23 lakh workers recruited, including 1.38 lakh community health officers. So CHOs also increased. So these are the numbers if we see the number of people getting added to the health machinery. Now decline in the maternal and infant mortality and TFR improvement. So your MMR has come down, your IMR has come down. So MMR we have just discussed. So it has declined by 83% since 1990, and if you see global decline has only happened by 45%, but in India it has happened by 89%, 83%. So very good numbers in the terms even if we compare with the global standards, and these numbers, and if we are able to implement our National Health Mission in the right way, our focus, sustainable development goals, will get over by 2030, and these MMR, IMR and TFR goals, sickle cell anemia and health mission, if we are able to achieve our goals, so what the target of sustainable development goals in terms of health is there, we would be able to be on the right framework to achieve it. Infant mortality rate is the number of children who die before their first birthday per 1,000 live births in a given population. So this number has also reduced. So reduced from 39 per 1,000 live births in 2014 to 28 per 1,000 live births in 2020. So it has come down from 39 to 28. There's a depreciation of 11 out there, but obviously we still needs to go to get back to go to 1 by 1,000. That is the target. If you remember the target, where is the? So if you see the IMR target is 25 by 1,000 and reduce the MMR to 1,000 per live birth and reduce TFR to 2.1. So total fertility rate TFR 2.1 is always needed, because what is your current population, or if you want to maintain the current state of population, 2.1 is the rate which is the correct one which we need to maintain. So MMR 1 by 1,000 live births, reduce IMR to 25. So we have reached around 28 we have reached. Okay, 28 we have reached. 3 more need to go to achieve the 25, and obviously it would be even better if you come lower the numbers. Okay, improvement in total fertility rate. So the average number of children a woman would have if she were to live in the end of her childbearing years. So the total fertility rate decreased from 2.3 to 2.0 according to National Family Health Survey, and we need 2.1. So from 2.3 we have come to 2.0. We need 2.1, which is the TFR target of India. So more or less we are working on our targets, and in the coming days we would be able to achieve it. So alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we are working and aligning our goals with the Sustainable Development Goals, because SDG will get end by 2030, and if India as a developing country is able to achieve these goals, it would be very terrific. So on the other hand, disease elimination and control, incidents of tuberculosis have reduced significantly. Contribution to combating disease like sickle cell anemia has also increased. So overall on sickle cell anemia, tuberculosis, MMR, good numbers and good efforts. So National Health Mission efforts in workforce expansion, reduction of mortality rate, be it infant mortality rate or maternal mortality rate, or working on the numbers of TFR, reducing the effects of sickle cell anemia, tuberculosis. So wonderful effort has been done, but more effort needs to be pushed by the government so that this complacency does not come and we achieve even better than our targets what we have put in front of us. So these achievement underscores India's progress in public health, reaffirming commitment to sustainable health outcomes ahead of the global benchmarks like Sustainable Development Goals or the Target 2030. So we complete this first news. So NHM was instrumental in reducing the maternal mortality ratio by 83% since 1990. Maternal mortality is the death of a woman during pregnancy or within 42 days after giving birth. It's a key indicator of region's reproductive health. So first statement is correct, second statement is correct. Now let's come to third one. NHM was launched by the Government of India in 2016, taking over the National Rural Health Mission only. No, third is wrong. First of all, it was not launched in 2016, it was launched in 2013, and it had urban and rural, both were subsumed by this mission, not only rural. So that is why the answer to this question will become A. A is the correct answer to this question. Okay. Subsuming, it came National Rural Health Mission, which was launched in 2005, and National Urban Health Mission, which was launched in 2013. Both were subsumed under the National Health Mission, which I told you in the start of the class also. Now let's move to the next important news. Good morning everyone. So what do you think? How are these numbers? Are these numbers good or they become better? What is your thought process? Please share with us. Now moving to the next important news. Trump warns of tariffs against European Union and 10% rate on China by February. So the game has started. Okay. And there are two major issues, which is with China specifically. He's got issue with Mexico and Mexico and Canada. With Mexico and Canada, there are two issues. Canada, obviously, there's an issue of tariffs, and then there is an issue that a lot of illegal migrants are also using the Canada route to come to America. And America also gives a lot of security, it takes care of the security of the Canadians. So America is saying that we are spending so much money for your security, why should we spend it? And you need to give more tax. If you are not ready to give more tax, you can become the 51st state of America, and then you need not pay any taxes and everything, and you'll become part of our country. Second is Mexico. Mexico, the problem is drug cartels and illegal immigrants. So that is very much not all the people who are coming from Mexico route to enter America, they are Mexicans. Lot of people from South America, Africa, or for that matter, even some of the Indian illegal migrants who have used the Mexico route to get to the American side. So trade is an issue, drugs is an issue, drug cartels is an issue, which we had covered yesterday, that the Donald Trump is saying that we are drug law enforcement agencies, even if we are able to curtail the drugs which are used in America, unless we destroy the source of drugs, nothing will happen. So the drugs also becomes a very important issue. Mexico, Colombia, South America, the biggest of drug cartels work here. They have huge amount of money. They have submarines, and they use all these submarines to put those drugs in America, and finally those drugs are able to reach Los Angeles and the entire America, and the drug economy continues. So these are the major problems with the Mexicans and the Canadians. Next comes China. Now China, the problem is that first of all, he would be putting a lot of tariffs on China because he feels that the Chinese, the American goods do not get the fairer value which the Chinese goods are able to get in America. So he would be putting a lot of tariffs and taxes on China. So that is one problem of trade, and second problem is of the fentanyl drug. Second problem is of this fentanyl trafficking issue. Now what is fentanyl? Fentanyl is also a drug, and majority of this drug comes from China. China is the country which gives the raw material, or the raw material is available for making this fentanyl drug in China. In the past, they had helped the Americans to stop it, but in the recent era of Joe Biden also had a problem with this fentanyl drug, and now Donald Trump definitely has. So with China, the trade issue and the fentanyl drug, because where this fentanyl drug is reaching America, drug abuse is happening. So from Mexicans, the drugs are coming, and the drug cartels are coming from the South American, or from China is also coming. And whenever you take very harsh steps against these drug cartels, there are very high chances of assassinations attempt against you, because these drug cartels are very powerful. They are connected with very big mafia, and there might be people in America who might be benefiting from these kind of drug cartels, who might be also in the power. So there can be great, assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Specifically, I'm talking from the angle of these drug cartels, not because he's taking these tariff measures or other things. That might be a reason that, the economic policies will become, some of the economic policies against America can come. But when you take actions against these drug cartels, mostly they use assassination as a very important method to kill the leader. So America need to be very, cautious about it. Okay, that is my understanding. So a 10% tariff on Chinese imports could be implemented by 1st February, with further threats of on Canada and Mexico for issuing, including illegal migration and drug trafficking, suggested potential 25% on their goods by February. So with China is going a little bit slow, 10%, but with Mexico and Canada is going with 25%. Already he's talking about Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. Panama Canal, he would be definitely taking. I told you yesterday why Panama Canal is important, because around the Panama Canal, the Chinese investment have been very high. Why China is investing in Panama Canal? See, you see the distance. So obviously there is a strategic move by China in the Panama Canal. The reason is that if you see Panama Canal, it connects from the connects the American from the west to the east very easily. Otherwise, you will take a long route from going to the Southern America, connecting two sides of the ocean also. And if this area is dominated by Chinese vessels, and tomorrow Panama decides that they will sell it to China, then this entire area would become a problem area for the Americans, because then China can dominate this strategic canal, and that is why Americans want this canal. I think in one of the coming sessions, I'll take a map and also make you understand. So reason Trump criticized the EU for not importing enough US products and for creating trade balance. This is also one of the issues with China also. So he's asking Europe that either you start buying more goods from America, or more defense weapons from America, or oil and gas from America, because America would be doing drill baby drill. So you have to start buying from me and not from Russia. So if you start buying, then things are good. Otherwise, tariffs might come to Europe also. Now, both Europe and China has given statements. They say that we will try to protect our interest also, but we are ready to do negotiations with Trump on this. So plan impose tariffs on demand increased purchase of American oil and gas. So you can't get fairness until you do that. So Trump is very fair that if you want America to save you, if you want fairer trade, you also start buying American goods. It's not like, that India's neighborhood first policy, like India definitely helps in, all these states. He is saying to Europe that I've already helped you a lot. In military, I've helped you. You start increasing the budget of 5% in NATO. If you want fairer trade, then you need to buy equal amount of things from me also, so that my country is also growing, and it's not that your countries are growing at the expense of me. Because why? When you go to Europe, you must have seen clean cities and everything, because security is a major area where you need to put funds. Like India has to put funds, Pakistan has to put, China has to put. So a lot of amount of your funds goes to around varying from 6 to 20% with various countries on your defense, and that varies from million to $1 billion. Okay, if your $1 billion are going in defense budget and America is taking care of the Europe, then Europe does not need to spend on these defense budgets. What they will do is that whatever amount which they needed to spend on defense, that is already being spent by America. So they will start putting on infrastructure, clean roads, toilets, a higher standard of living. So the growth of Europe in the last 20-30 years has been supported by Americans. There is no doubt about it, because America was taking the entire brunt of this security, politics and everything. They were spending, and Europe was focusing on other growth. Now if you see, once Europe starts spending on their defense to counter Russia, you will see, I'm not saying the development will come down, but the amount of money they are able to put in social schemes, they will come down. This is a problem with the India also. India, Pakistan, China, because we are threat to each other, and specifically Pakistan or China are arch rivals to India. So we need to put money for our security. If they would have not been a threat, obviously the economies would have been much better and aligned, probably like the Europeans. But now, since the threat to Europe is coming from Russia, China also, they will need to spend on security, and Americans will not come and save them. Americans will only come and save them if they are buying weapons or if they are putting the same amount of money, and that is a very tough call for Europe to take. Okay, so let's see what they will eventually do. Okay. So the Americans are saying that, this Chinese sent this fentanyl to Mexico, and from there this drugs is entering. So that is why China is a problem, Mexico is a problem, and eventually your Europe is definitely a problem, which I have just made you understood. So the foreign ministry spokesperson Mao Ning has said there are no winners in trade war or tariff war. This has come from China, but I don't think so any impact on Trump. This statement will have any impact on Trump. So let's see what eventually will come in this. We would be covering that. Now next important and a wonderful article in depth which has come is Oxfam report. So the report emphasizes United Kingdom extracted $64.82 trillion from India during colonial era. 33.8 trillion benefited top 10%. So even this money which was extracted from India, or rather which was exploited from India, which worth is more than $60 trillion. Just imagine, Indian economy is currently around $4 trillion. We are the 5th largest economy, and eventually we will become the 3rd largest economy. Just imagine, I am not even saying $60 trillion, just add 10% of it. Even if you add 10% of it, that becomes $6 trillion. If you add around $6 trillion, you become a $10 trillion economy. If you add 50% of it, then you become around around 60 trillion of it, so $34 trillion economy you have become. So just see the growth. So this is the exploitation Britishers have done, and this amount of money which was exploited, this also went to UK's top 10. Not even it was distributed equally among the UK. So this shows that that colonialism first of all exploited India, and the money which came also went to the top 10%. It was not equally distributed. This also shows that how if you go in the UK society and the democracy which they talk about, there are classifications out there also, and there might be discrimination out also between the rich and poor. So obviously what they did with India, superbly wrong. But in their own community, it also the money went to the top 10% only. So Oxfam International report says, it tells us title takers and not makers. So because they were only takers, rather they were looters. That's a better word. Looters and not makers. Looters and exploiters. That would be the best name for this report. Looters and exploitators, and the top #1 looters and exploiters of the world. So takers and not makers, this is the title of the report, released at the World Economic Forum 2025, highlights the massive wealth extraction by UK from India during the colonial period of 1765 to 1900. So in ancient India, when we used to say that India is that gold bird, okay, in Hindi we used to say that Sone ki chidiya, or the gold bird. So actually this is true. We used to dominate the world GDP, and today when we have come down to the amount of percentage of GDP which we are world GDP which we are handling, it is one of major reasons are this only. Okay, we will come to that. So reports underline enduring impact of colonialism, which continues to shape global socio-economic inequalities, and the wealth which was generated at that point of time, it still continues to dominate, because the Americans, or because in the total marketing system of Americans and Europeans, that money did get circulated. And this is what I was just talking about, Europeans, right? Development and everything. America was supporting, and initially they got exploited the entire world, and that is how their economies were built. Today they talk about democracy and rights. If we go back in their history, it is written by blood and only blood, and that is the reality of these Europeans. They might talk about industrial and Renaissance revolution, but all these revolution eventually came on the slavery of the Africans and the slavery of Indians and the Asians. That is the harsh truth they don't want to talk about. But finally, these kind of reports are coming. So UK extracted $64.82 trillion from India between 1765 and 1900. Of this, 33.8 trillion benefited the richest 10% in the UK, enough to carpet London 4 times with $50 50 pound notes. So just imagine, if you this $33.8 trillion which benefited the top, if you start distributing this money in London, so entire London can be covered 4 times. Entire London can be covered 4 times with 50 pounds note. That is the amount of the money they looted. Just imagine the entire city of London covered 4 times. 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, 4 time with 50 pound note. So post-colonial activity, inequality still continues with economic injustices, wealth remaining concentrated with the elite. Because even after post-colonialization, even after the Second World War, what was the major problem? The major problem in the World War, after World War, was that even after the Bretton Woods system, IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, they are still dominated by these elites. This is still dominated by global north. The wealth is still concentrated in global north. So this colonialism still continues because the top agencies and top networks of wealth creation and related to wealth, be it World Bank, be it IMF, be it SWIFT key system, they are still dominated by these countries only. So the inequality continues. So India's share in global industrial output, which used to be 25% in 1750, came down to 2% by 1900. Okay, India's share in global industrial output fell from 25% in 1750 to 2% to 2% in 1900. Okay, so the colonial period 1765 to 1900. I hope I said 1900 only earlier, not 1990. Okay, so East India Company, so coming back to this, so protectionist policies against Indian textiles, British policies that suppressed India's industrial growth, that continued. A temporary reversal occurred during World War I when disrupted trade patterns inadvertently. That also happened inadvertently because Britishers were not looking. This cycle was broken because of the World War I. And just imagine from 25% in 1750 to coming 2% in 1900. So we were at point of one time ruling the gold, and you know that bird of gold and everything. So see, just imagine from global industrial output from 25% to 2%. Why I am reiterating this shows the strength of the Indian economy, what it used to be in 1750 and what it came down, and still we are trying. The sluggish growth continues. Obviously, Indian economy had the moments of very good growth, but we are still trying to recover to go to these golden days. That will take time. Just imagine if those $63 trillion gets added to your current economy, so it becomes around 67 trillion economy. So where would you be? Just imagine. So from 1830 to 1930, 3.7 billion indentured workers were transported to colonial plantation and mines. So it is not only the exploitation of resources, it was also exploitation of people, slavery. So why, for example, today if you see the Americans are, why do they outsource their projects to the Chinese or the Indians? Because we are cheap labor. That is what they used to do. That is what they are doing right now. At this point of time when there was no rights, which was the labor? Indians was the labor, Africans was the labor, Southeast Asia, Chinese, we were the labor. Very cheap labor, no money need to be given, because if the same amount of work is done in Europe and America, they need to pay more. So what happened at that point of time, it still continues. Only a good name has been given, offshore market, sending into different countries. So East Indian Company, which we can say, if we define it, if it's a multinational organization, army had of 260,000 soldiers, surpassing the size of British peacetime army. So this East India Company, which is not any government organization, it's a private company. So this private company had an army of 260,000. So this army is even bigger than the British peacetime army and army of many other countries. So from where the money was coming and who are these people who have joined, it was all extracted from India. The resources were extracted from India. So land disposition and violence continued. Labor in global south continues to be exploited, and that is why what I keep saying, that why global south has become important. Earlier you had these least developing countries and developed world, but the current definition in international order is global north and global south. Global south, it's not specifically from the terms of geography, but global south basically pertains to these countries which have been subjugated because of colonialism, imperialism, and China and India becomes part of global south, which are taking this entire global south through organization like Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BRICS, and many other organizations towards more development, towards more prosperity. Why global south is important? Because global north, which is dominated by elites and money, they are not interested in the development in global south, and that is why global south is important for India and many other countries. So economic inequality continues. Colonial multinational corporations such as the East India Company laid the foundation for the modern global economic system. Wealth extracted from colonies fueled financial markets in London. So the amount of money, just imagine $63 trillion which went to the 10% elite, around $33 trillion which went to the elite of the Britishers, which eventually went to the financial system of London. And when we say London is the epicenter or the center of the financial system, from where did this money come? It came from you, me, our ancestors who were butchered by the Britishers for the for the hegemony and economic domination which Britishers created over the Indian land, looted us like anything, and that is how this more than $63 trillion was generated, which is running this American and the European financial system today. And it is very good that eventually, even if it is for singing or getting some Indian vibes or Indian support, at least the Coldplay singer Chris Martin, at least he apologized for what Britishers have done. Still we are waiting for an official apology from the Britishers, but at least an apology which has come from the Coldplay lead singer Chris Martin, at least that's a welcome, even though if he is trying to sway the Indian crowd towards him, but at least an apology has come. But that apology we are still waiting from the Britishers. We are still waiting for the apology for so many acts, massacre acts which they have done. Excess debts under British rule, 59 million deaths between 1891 and 1920 because they were not interested in giving food when famines were happening in India. Their focus was World War II, and even when the World War was not happening, we still remember what Winston Churchill said about India. British priorities, 75% of colonial expenses were spent on military power, while public work received only 3%. So because this was for India, but at the same time, if you go see what was happening in Britain, numbers would be very different. There they talk about rights, but in India, Indians never had rights. Social divisions. British formalized and exploited caste, religion, language division, deepening socio-economic divides, which still continues. And it is not only India they divided. The problem, in people in India they divided. India-Pakistan issue, India-China issue of Johnson's line, McDonald line, Redcliffe line, even the issue of Rohingyas, even the issue of Israel-Palestine. If you go and read about these issues, the country which was underneath all these crises is Britain. It is not only about the Asian countries which are fighting against each other, it's also Israel and Palestine. Beneath the Israel and Palestine issue, it is the Britishers because of which this entire issue ignites. So British East Indian Company promoted opium production in India, export to China, and this eventually, see, they're starting opium production. Why they're not starting opium production in Europe? And so today we talk about Golden Crescent, Golden Triangle. So if we talk about Golden Crescent, Golden Triangle, they had already started it long time back. Okay. So this contributing to opium wars and China's century of humiliation because of this drug culture. And who were the people who introduced drug culture in China? This is your Britishers for their personal benefits, to make money, to create this poppy money. And today if you are doing poppy money, you are criminals under the eyes of FATF. FATF is your Financial Action Task Force which works against organized crime and against this financing of terrorism. So what were they doing at this point of time when they were exploiting in India using the poppy money from China and India and funding their financial markets? Isn't this financial terrorism? Isn't this drug trafficking, drug business? But again, so we covered that news that Donald Trump is against the fentanyl drug and the Mexican drug cartels. But what about this? No statement from a Britishers has ever come on this. So areas focused on opium production of faced poor public spending on education and health, long-term socio-economic repercussions which still continues. We can also do the current modern parallels, the money which was exploited at that point of time and the agencies which were exploiting, they still continue in 2025. Global supply chains replicate colonial structure. They are still dominated by global north and not global south. And since this global north is being questioned by China, one of the reasons they don't like China is that they question that this country has the deep pockets and money to question global north. The problem with China is that it can question, but even after becoming, powerful, rather than helping these countries, the global south, China also uses the same technique of global north against global north and even against those global south countries. That's the problem with China. If China would have been more supportive to global south countries, not doing these, expansionist policies, more support for China would have come. Okay. So, with profits concentrated in the global north while exploiting workers in the global south. Examples of bioprivacy, the 1994 patent by the US multinational WR Grace on the neem extract. See, neem came from India, and for that also they had the rights for neem. Okay, I think there is an issue. I can understand, Alexander. I think there was an issue with that video. So probably might not visible. We'll look into it and then I would be able to tell you. Okay, so was revoked after protest highlighting the resource exploitation which was done by the, all these foreign countries. Institutions like WTO, World Bank, IMF again dominated by these top countries. During the COVID-19 pandemic, proposals for waiving vaccine-related intellectual property rights. So during the COVID-19, India was asking that we need to remove these, waive all these vaccine-related intellectual property rights so that vaccines can be distributed. But again, the developed world was not interested. So they'll talk about, these democratic rights. They'll talk about to fund the climate change, but the money is not coming for the climate change. So the ask was around $1 trillion and what they eventually got was around $300 billion. So around your $1,000 billion makes $1 trillion. So the ask was $1 trillion per year to fight climate change, but that money is not coming. And if you see the industrial revolution which the Britishers talk about, the Europeans talk about, Americans, that which eventually leads to overall industrial revolution around the world and things starts happening. But because of this industrial revolution, the amount of pollution which happened is the major reason for today's climate change. So we talk about, common goals, but, differentiated targets, we have common goal of against to fight climate change, but our targets needs to be different and target of the developed world needs to be very high, which they have never agreed. So that is a problem. Even after the exploitation, they don't agree. So fossil fuel exploitation that began in colonial era continues to be drive the climate crisis. Colonial powers prioritize resource extraction over sustainable development, creating fruit from the poison tree, and that continues. And even today, they don't agree to put money against climate change. So in conclusion, the report highlights the lasting impact of colonial exploitation, emphasizing the need for addressing global inequalities. So these findings stress the importance of equitable global economic system and reparative justice for historically disadvantaged regions. So the report has come now. Obviously, the countries need to sit. So reparations of the money should happen, but I don't think so. Britishers still have not given an official apology. Asking them for to give back money is almost impossible. But nonetheless, we should try and we should use international forums to tell these Britishers what they have done. At least that's the bare minimum we should do. So discuss the economic and social consequences of British colonialism in India as highlighted by the Oxfam report. How do these consequences continue to influence global inequalities in today? 250 words. So a lot of information I've shared and given you a lot of information. You can use this, write your answer, and I've also given you an expected line of answer. Later on you can download the PDF also. Okay. Now the IPM test series, that is IPM 1.0 test series 2026. Okay, integrated prelims come main test series for UPSC CSU 2026. It's starting on 25th January 2025 and 106 tests in total. Prelims we have got 54 tests, mains we have got 50 prelims 54 tests, mains 52 tests. For all details, you can contact on the number 80 69 40 5205. You will get all the details if you want to enroll in these test series, which will enhance your prelims and mains preparation. You can also scan these QR codes for all the details. Now moving towards the editorial for today. Similar kind of editorial we had done earlier also. That was more from India's point of view. China's move must recast India's critical mineral push. Now see, the China, they have been very smart. What they have done is that, or if you take any product, the raw material of that product would always be coming from China. So when they started doing their development in 70s and 80s, first infrastructure will come and then they'll start doing the manufacturing of goods. They will eventually realize that if we control the most important raw material, even if the product is made in India, America, Europe, that raw material, if it is not coming from China, they cannot make that product. So they started focusing on raw material. Now, second important thing is that they started focusing on the most important minerals and resources. For example, you might have the best technology of creating the lithium batteries. But if you don't have lithium, you cannot create the batteries even you have the best technology. So China started focusing on that. Lithium would be the focus, germanium and other mineral resources, that all these mineral resources, the maximum export of these mineral resources should happen from China. And third important thing China what did, if China did not have the rights to those mineral resources, or they did not have those resources in their own land or near in their exclusive economic zone, they went all over the world, and wherever they found that in this country this particular say lithium or germanium is available, they did a deal with that country, with the leaders, and said for the next 20, 50 or 70 years, this product would be done by us and we'll give you the commission. So they did this deliberate strategy, and that is why in global mineral resources cycle, they dominate all these minerals and resources. And if you're dominating the minerals and resources, you will dominate the semiconductors, you can dominate the EVs. Because even if you have the best software of EV, but EV will need a battery to run that EV. So if the batteries raw material of lithium is coming from China, or any other material which is used in that battery is coming from China, or Chinese related or Chinese based company, then again you are dependent on China. So this is a strategic game plan they deployed, and they have successfully executed, and that is the reason that Americans are very much against it. So Americans have the best artificial intelligence technology, and they don't want to share with the Chinese, because they don't want Chinese to take the race ahead or race ahead of them. So what the Americans, they stopped giving this technology to China in the recent days, which we have seen. So what Chinese did, Chinese stopped supplying the important materials like germanium and other minerals or metals which are needed for making those semiconductors, and those semiconductors which are needed to run the artificial intelligence, those servers or whatever you call. So, or GPUs, which I should say. So GPUs are if they are based on semiconductors. So the best technology or the best software or the best LLM language, best LLM on which the AI is based, that can be American, but you will need a hardware system. That hardware system and the most important part of that system is still coming from Germany. So Americans stopped the technology, and Chinese stopped the most important raw material, and that is how China can dominate the world. So they knew that this can happen in the future, though they have been very smart. So on 2nd January 2025, China Ministry of Commerce and expanded its export control list, restricting 28 US based entities access to critical minerals. Minerals such as tungsten, gallium, magnesium and lithium 6 are vital for advanced technology, including semiconductors, batteries, aerospace and electronics. Just imagine. Semiconductors, batteries, aerospace and electronics, these are the industries which will dominate the world in coming 3, 4, 5 decades, and they are all this raw material resources. China dominates them. So if China is dominating, so even if Americans try their tariff wars, it will backfire for them, there is no doubt. So China's strategic approach to weaponizing critical minerals, obviously they are weaponizing it, because if they don't give you, how will you proceed with your making a GPU or something. So export target Western nation, balancing domestic industrial priorities and dependencies on Western raw material, and they're only targeting those raw material which the Western countries need. The domestic material which Chinese also need, they are not targeting those. So they have been very smart which mineral to target and which mineral not to target. So example of export restrictions: rare earth embargo against Japan in 2010. Recent curbs on antimony, gallium and germanium, this was put against the Americans. Ban on rare earth extraction and processing technologies in December 2023. And why they are trying to get over the South China Sea? Because South China Sea is a hub or South China Sea is a place where you get these rare earth minerals, and that is why they created artificial islands. Once they created the artificial islands, then they said this exclusive economic zone belongs to us. Once the exclusive economic zone belongs to us, then they can, process and find these rare earth minerals. So it's a calculated strategy focusing on mineral critical for Western nations, high-tech industries. Stop that. If the minerals are not going, how will the high-tech industries work? Avoid disrupting minerals reliant on Western imports or domestic industries. So if there is a product which their domestic industry also needs, they have, but they have a little quantity, that they are not stopping. So very strategically Chinese are working on this. So what is the Indian challenge? So recently in around 2023, lithium deposits were found in Jammu and Kashmir, and we thought that, the lithium deposits by now something will start. Lithium is very important from the point of view of EV and batteries. Nothing has moved on. We are still feel that we are still in the license Raj. Okay, so the Jammu and Kashmir needs, that particular resource needs to be taken out and given focus. So government initiative identified 30 critical minerals essential for national security. We also established something called Kabil for overseas investment. Now Kabil is very good. So Kabil is like the Chinese, when they, which I told you, they did deal that they went to many other countries and they did an agreement with them that we'll take out this particular minerals resource and we'll give you commission. So Kabil was similarly created by India. So Kabil has been successful, but not to the extent which we want. So Kabil stands for Khanij Videsh India Limited, where we'll go outside, do deals and try to take out what China has already done. So we also passed Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Amendment Act 2023, removing restrictive classification for some rare earth elements. That was also removed. So legal point of view and diplomatic point of view, economic point of view, we have started, but compared to China, we are far behind. So allowing exploration license schemes, specialized agencies including foreign firms to conduct resource exploitation without committing to full-scale mining, and if they are able to achieve 50% of exploration cost, mining begins to de-risk early stage operations was also introduced. Limited success, few exploration license approval. I think the focus of the government is not very much on into it, but in the coming days, if we are focusing on artificial intelligence, EVs, semiconductors, and this top technology, this should be the area where we need to focus. So mining licensing authorities auction for critical minerals have been largely stagnated. Okay, challenges in implementation, outdated resource classification, geologically incomplete data on many auction blocks increases risk for bidders. Geological study has also not been done. For example, so you are asking an investor to put a money on this land, that this land might have lithium or some. So there are not proper geological studies have also not been done. So even if I want to put my 5 crore, 10 crore, 20 crore, I want to know that if I put 20 crore, tomorrow I would be able to get 50 crore or 100 crore out of it, that this particular land has lithium or any other reserve. So in India, we still don't have proper research, geological research on things. And we also lack advanced classification under global standards like G1 to G4 levels. Since we do not have global standards, since we do not have geological data that this particular land has a mineral resource or not, so many of the investors from outside or from India are not interested because they don't want to put a money. For example, they put their money of 5 crore, 10 crore and they get to there was nothing in this. So that does not make any sense. So that is what I'm talking about. High quality data, robust geological survey needs to be done so that we have data. Okay, so lack of robust geological surveys create information asymmetry, making it harder for bidders to put money. Say if I want, people think 10 rupee, people think twice putting their 30 rupees, 40 rupees or 100 rupees. Think about putting 100, 5 crore, 10 crore, 15 crore in a piece of land, buying it or putting resources to take out things, and then you got nothing. Entire things will go in vain. So proposed solution, upfront fiscal incentive should be there. Exploration similar to India's semiconductor fabrication model, which we see how in semiconductor the focus should be there. The Prime Minister visited Singapore also. So similar models can be explored, providing direct capital support during exploration phase, because that is the phase which requires huge amount of money. Early capital infusion can unlock value, because many of the investors might not have that kind of money, or they might not be interested in taking such a big risk. Okay. So this is the main question. India's critical mineral sector faces numerous challenges despite recent reforms. Discuss the significance of fiscal incentives and robust geological data in addressing these issues. Okay, and I've given you the expected line of answer. Okay, you can go through it. And in the extra mile, you can go through this important news which has come in the Hindu, is the government encouraging cross-pathy. So cross-pathy, it's basically talking about issuing a directive allowing homeopathic practitioners to prescribe allopathic medicines. So cross-pathy. Okay. In ICANN 2.2, you can do current affairs, which more related to your mains under Sapna ma'am. These videos come every day on Insights YouTube channel. I hope that you did learn a lot of things for today. Thank you very much, and I hope. Sorry for the inconvenience that the session started 30 minutes late. Take care and Jai Hind and bye bye.